first installment of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate podcast, not the podcast itself, but the NFL offseason team review. The goal is to try and get through as many teams as we can, hopefully all of them before the season starts. So I figured I'd start with the Vikings. I know a lot of Vikings fans, so I figured, let's start with them. Obviously, Mr. Doetkott himself, the man with the fro, is a big Vikings fan, but we don't want just him. So what's better than one more Vikings fan, but two more Vikings fans? So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the man with the glasses there to our left. For me, it is on the bottom, Mr. Ben Johnson, and the guy to the right, James Strom. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great.
Great.
They're both great. Hey, both great. You can't ask for anything more, right? Can't ask for anything more.
As good as a Vikings fan can do.
That
is a true Viking fan speaking right there.
Yeah.
Both of these guys, as far as Vikings fans are concerned, in my opinion, probably two of the biggest Vikings fans that I know. Very passionate too. They're certainly not afraid to tell you how things are. So that's what I want. That's what I want on here. So they're basically two more Nick Ducketts, essentially, is how it goes.
Probably smarter, though.
Well, I mean, I would assume so. I would assume so. But anyways, so let's just get right into it here, talk some Vikings football. So last season, the Vikings finished 10-6, second place in the NFC North. That was enough to make the playoffs. The first game they played decent. They played decent enough to make it to another round where not as decent. But they made the playoffs. They won a game.
Hey,
Nick, you got something to say?
We beat the New Orleans Who-Dat Saints, though, so it's a win.
That's true.
Baby. It's a win.
That you did.
Playoffs.
So we will, I guess we'll start with James on this one. Obviously, going in to the playoffs against New Orleans Saints, and we'll eventually get to how you guys did overall as a team last year, but we'll talk about the playoffs right now. The Saints, it seems like every year, no matter how either you guys finish, in one facet or another, you guys are going off against each other. I don't know how it works like that, but it just does. It's always a great game. That's true. That's true. So, James, was there any doubt in your mind that you did not think you would beat the Saints, or were you pretty confident the whole way?
I mean, I was confident, but I mean, it's the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome. It's a tough matchup. I mean, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas. I mean, they're gonna put up big stats. There was not as much doubt as a little bit of worry, but I was pretty confident. I thought we matched up pretty well, and I guess it worked out.
Ben, what about you?
Well, I mean, you saw us stomp them the 2 years before with the Minneapolis Miracle, obviously, so we had to live up to that. There was no way we weren't going to play well. No way. So I was pretty confident. I think we had it secured. It was closer than I thought it would be for sure. But.
And Mr. Duckett, what about you?
Dude, I literally thought we were going to lose by like 20. I'm not kidding. I had absolutely no confidence at all.
Why is that? Why are you different from them?
Huh?
Why was why do you think they were going to lose versus win like these two?
Quite optimistic Vikings fan, more so than most. But I thought the Saints were the best team in the NFC last year. I truly did. I did not realize San Fran was as good as they were. I honestly didn't think they were good the whole year, and then they made the Super Bowl. I'm like, okay, I guess I was wrong.
I just got to put this out there right now.
Yeah.
Packers worst number 2 seed there's ever been.
One of the worst.
Ever.
The worst
One of
13-3 team in the history of the NFL.
Yeah. That was a scam.
Yeah, one of the
scam.
They were not a good 2 seed.
No, not good.
If it weren't for the fact that we simply couldn't win a divisional game, the Packers wouldn't have been a 2 seed anyways.
Exactly.
I just thought New Orleans was really good, and it was at home, and I didn't like the way Minnesota was playing towards the end of the year, and I just honestly had no confidence. I just didn't, but they proved me wrong. So,
James, you got something to say?
I was going to say, I like how Mike Zimmer is able to mix up our defense in that game a little bit more than people are expecting. I mean, we moved Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin on the interior of the defensive line instead of having them on the edge.
Which was brilliant.
Which was brilliant. It really threw him off. And, I mean, Zimmer's a defensive genius. He's able to throw some stuff out there.
That's what won the game. Because
just catching them
the
off
Saints'
guard.
O-line is really good, but the outside is definitely better than the inside. And Danielle Hunter, I don't care what anybody says. It's not the Viking fan in me saying this. Danielle Hunter is probably a top 3 pass rusher. I don't know if there's any pass rusher in the game I'd take over him besides Chandler Jones, if I'm being completely honest. He's an absolute stud. And if you would have told me Danielle Hunter was going to go against a center the whole game or a left guard, I would have said he's going to annihilate him. I don't think anybody knew that was the game plan until the game actually happened, and we're like, oh, what is this? And it worked. It was marvelous. And, yeah, that was the difference in the game. It honestly was.
Now, obviously, the game kind of looked like at first that the Vikings were maybe running away with it, and then, much like Saints fashion, they came back.
That's everything.
Taysom Hill was probably the offensive player for that game for the Saints. He absolutely went off. Brought them to overtime, and then obviously what some people think was controversial, I personally don't think it was. The Kyle Rudolph touchdown, the little floater there that Kirk Cousins put up to him. I don't think that was. I certainly do not think that was offensive pass interference. I could see. Yeah, what? Go ahead.
I personally think it was offensive pass interference. He clearly extended his arms. But with that being said, it's a judgment call, and I mean, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it called sometimes. You're not gonna get it called sometimes. At the end of the day, don't put yourself in that situation.
Exactly. He extended his arm.
In my honest opinion, the defense was kind of grabbing him first too. But in my honest opinion, by definition, by rule, he extended his arms. I think it was offensive pass interference.
Well, it was kind of a 50-50 ball once the defense also had contact there.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely argument for it and against.
It's a good no call.
It was. But, I mean...
And that's a tough call to make in that position in the playoffs.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you're New Orleans, don't put yourself in that situation.
And it wasn't egregious, too. It's not like it was an egregious, shoved him to the ground,
it wasn't like
stiff
the year
arm
before
him.
That with the pass interference.
Yeah.
If I remember right, that was on first down, too. That was right after the Thielen toss, right?
That was on third and goal.
I can't remember if it was first down or second down.
Yeah, it was third and goal.
Whatever it was, I feel like we were scoring either way.
Well, either way, we're kicking a field goal, but you don't really want to give Drew Brees the ball with a chance to win it in one drive.
So we might have gone for it on fourth down, too, but it's debatable.
I could have seen that. Never know, I guess.
Two things that I want to run past you guys. Number one, is that the best throw that you have ever seen Kirk Cousins make in your entire life? No. Washington Vikings ever? I mean, that was an amazing throw to Thielen. Sorry, pass to Thielen is what I'm talking about.
No, the best pass actually Cousins throw is a different pass to Thielen.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the one against the Packers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we set it between two people.
The second game as a Packer, we should have lost that game about 18 different times, and we kept coming back. And then we should have won it twice, but we couldn't make a field goal either. But with 40 seconds left in regulation, Cousins threw a 40-yard bomb to the 8-yard line on the sidelines. He literally got it in between two defenders. He literally had to throw it at the perfect exact timing in the perfect spot. And I don't know how Thielen even caught it. The window was so tight. I don't think any quarterback in football would have made that pass at that exact moment. It's by far the best pass I've ever seen Cousins make. So no, it was a good pass to Rudolph or to Thielen, but it didn't beat the other one to Thielen, game 2.
Right. Hey, that's why I have Vikings fans on here to tell me when I'm wrong.
And you can tell it's good because Ben and I both thought that right away, and I think Gumpf did as well.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And then the second question being, obviously the Vikings got the first run at it in overtime. Now, it worked out for you because you won. Okay, obviously. But in general, what is your guys' opinion on the overtime playoff rule where the first person to get a touchdown, now if like the Vikings did, they got the ball first, they scored a touchdown and won. And worked out for you, great. But what is your overall opinion on that? Do you think both teams should have a chance to match it, or do you like it how it is? And anyone can take this to start.
The NFL overtime rule is pathetic. It's a terrible rule. It's better than it once was. The whole reason it got changed in the first place is because the 09 NFC Championship game where the Saints got to start with the ball, and they didn't even get a touchdown. They got a Garrett Hartley field goal. That, first of all, never should have happened because there was a defensive pass interference that never should have happened, blah, blah, blah. Regardless, we lost because of a field goal. Directly after that, the next offseason, they changed the rule where it had to be a touchdown. Granted, it's still dumb. It's better than it once was. But it should be somewhat like college. I'm not saying you have to start at the 30, but both teams should get an equal opportunity. It shouldn't really be timed anymore because you can honestly get a team that goes down there and scores a touchdown in 10 minutes and practically just drains overtime away. So they got to go somewhat like college football does it. Now, I know, not that they should care, but fantasy football is huge, and you'd have like freaking 70-point games. You'd have guys in overtime scoring like 60 fantasy points. But the NFL can't worry about that. And they have to change their overtime rules somewhat similar to college, in my opinion, because I hate the sudden death rule.
Yeah, it's tricky. I was going to say the same thing with the 09 championship. That really did change the rule for the better.
Yep.
It's just, you can't have one team. You have to play both sides of the ball for both teams. It's just not fair otherwise, no matter what.
I mean,
that's all I know.
The AFC Championship between the Chiefs and the Patriots 2 years ago. Yeah. Patriots ended up winning the Super Bowl.
Mahomes didn't
if
even
the Chiefs win that coin toss, I think there's a pretty good chance they get a touchdown and they make it to the Super Bowl. But they didn't
Matt Ryan in the Super Bowl. I mean, granted, they shouldn't have even been in that position in the first place, but
good point.
It can't rely that much on a coin toss.
Yeah. James, what do you think?
I mean, I pretty much feel the same way. I think it would be better if each team had a chance. If you have to go sudden death after each team get a possession, that's fine. Yeah, I personally am not a fan of the 10-minute overtime. They cut it down from 15 to 10. I'm not sure at what point, but that puts a lot of teams in a bad spot where if you do force a turnover on downs and you get the ball, you only have 2-3 minutes to make a drive, and I think we have too many ties. I do not think you should be able to tie in the NFL.
I'm glad you mentioned the 10-minute thing. That's dumb too. I don't understand that, especially considering you now go to, I know it was over 10 years ago now where they changed it where it had to be a touchdown. But if the first team gets a touchdown and then you get the ball back, what happens if that first team gets a touchdown in 7 minutes? You're supposed to go all the way down there in 3 minutes. Like, yeah, it's doable, but you shouldn't have to. So I don't get why they changed it to 10 minutes either. I'm glad you mentioned that.
And even then, if you pull off a touchdown on that 3 minutes, you have 50 seconds or a tie. You're not giving the other team a chance to respond to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, interesting. Maybe that'll change in the future. Who knows? But anyway,
at the very least change in overtime. Hockey has different overtime rules in the playoffs than they do the regular season. If you don't want to change your overtime rules similar to college because you don't want 4.5 hour, 5 hour football games, then I get it. I still think it would be dumb, but I get it. But who cares how long a playoff game is? I don't care if the Super Bowl lasts 12 freaking hours. I'm going to take 13 overtimes rather than my team losing the Super Bowl because they couldn't guess what, whether George Washington's backside or his head was going to show.
Isn't it like a football and like the American flag or something? Don't they have like a specially made coin?
And a quarter's like an eagle.
It's custom every time, I think.
Yeah. There we go. Talking about coins made for the play. But anyway, so we'll talk about last season in general. So like I mentioned, Vikings finished 10-6. I guess, Ben, I'll start with you on this one. How do you feel in whole the Vikings played last? So take away the playoffs and just, regular season wise, how do you think they played? Are you pleased, disappointed? What do you think?
Well, obviously the ending was a little disappointing, but for regular season wise, it was a little too much up and down. Consistency wasn't there that should have been there. We had the team. As you can see, we lost a lot of them. That was, in a sense, might have been our biggest chance at a win, like the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. We'll see. And I think we kind of blew it. We lost some consistency. Obviously, there were some injuries there with Thielen, and then Diggs started acting up, and just little things that really ruined the consistency. I was a little disappointed, but also happy we made the playoffs and not surprised we won a game. We're a good team.
You are a very good team. James, what do you think? You kind of echo that a little bit. Anything else? What do you think of that?
Yeah, pretty much the same. We definitely did have some consistency issues. It took us till week 4 or 5 to kind of get our game plan and in the right order and figuring stuff out. I think of the first time we played the Bears last year, we couldn't do a single thing in the whole game. We could not get anything going. We did kind of drop a couple games. We lost to the Chiefs, which is a game we should have won with Matt Moore at quarterback. Packers, I feel like we should have at least split, but it was tough with that Week 17 game without our number 1, number 2 running back. So I feel like we could have definitely ended up at the top of our division. The second time we played the Bears, too, we rested every single starter, and we almost beat them. So we definitely a winnable game where we could have, turned it and gone 12-4, 13-3 instead of the 10-6, which would have, affected our playoff seeding and stuff. So overall, it was a good year. We still ended up, one of the top teams in the NFC, but definitely had room for improvement.
Definitely. So I guess we really didn't get a chance. Or Nick, I kind of forgot about you, I suppose. What do you think? What do you think about the Vikings season last year?
If I remember correctly, I predicted them to go 11-5, and they went 10-6. So it was pretty close. And the last game, like he mentioned, we didn't really even play the starters. Had we done that, we may have won, and we may have gone 11-5. So I mean, I was, for the most part, happy with the regular season, and I didn't expect to win that playoff game coming into it, and we did. So, I mean, you win a playoff game a lot of times, I mean, that's a good season. Obviously, we all won a Super Bowl, so at the end of the day, any year you don't win one, it's kind of disappointing, right? But, I mean, it was a good season. With that being said, we went 10-6. You know what our record was outside of the division? 10-2. You have got to win some divisional games. I don't think Cousins, it's not Cousins' fault, but I don't think Cousins has beat the Bears as a Viking. Pretty sure he's 0-4. Pretty sure he's 0-3-1 against the Packers. Like you cannot get good seeds for the playoffs. You can't win your division if you can't win divisional games. We have got to do that. The Bears just have our number. I don't know what it is. Like Khalil Mack, I don't care what anybody says. He's not nearly as good as they say he is. But when he plays the Vikings, he looks like he's Lawrence Taylor. I mean, and they have got to figure out how to beat the Bears and the Packers. If they do so, they can get a really good seed. But they've got to figure out how to beat the divisional opponents, or they're not going to go anywhere because they're not going to get a good enough ranking, not going to get a good enough seed in the playoffs. And in the NFL, almost every single year, the Super Bowl is between two teams who had a first-round bye. It's very, very hard to get to the Super Bowl without a first-round bye. And you cannot get a bye without winning your division. So they have to beat the Packers and the Bears. With that being said, every other aspect, they did good. They just got to win the divisional games.
Nick is a very critical fan. He's very critical of his team.
I'm going to let him hear it,
man. So I guess we didn't I mean, this is my bad. We didn't really get to talk about the Vikings loss versus the 49ers.
That's
I don't think you guys are too upset if we don't talk about that. But I guess whoever, James, I'll start with you on this one now. There was really not much part of that game where they played well. Early on, they were okay, but it got out of hand pretty quick. What was the biggest issue for the Vikings? And I guess if you just want to break down in general what your thoughts were on the game.
Well, didn't we end the first half it was like 9-10 or something like that? So coming into about the second half, we were at least a close game score-wise. But I think a lot of it came out of offensive line play. They just dominated on the defensive line. Couldn't get a run game going, couldn't have any protection. They have pretty solid cornerbacks. I believe one of their corners went out at some point. They brought in their backup, and he somehow was able to shut down Diggs and Stefon the whole time. So I think the biggest thing came down to the offensive line play, where we held them to 17 or 20 points or something like that, which is semi-decent when you're going up against the future NFC title holder. So we just couldn't get anything offensively going. Couldn't give Cousin time. Dalvin Cook, who was our main man, couldn't get the play action going. Couldn't get him doing anything. So I think that was kind of the end of it. Came down to the offensive line.
Ben, what do you think?
I mean, it was just like the rest of the season, inconsistency. If we would have kept them, we honestly could have won that game if we would have played with them like we did in the first half. We just drop off. Partially, you got to give them credit. They were a good team, well coached, all around the board. It was more meant to be for them, and you can't get mad about that. But honestly, that was kind of the championship game because everyone knew whoever won that game was going to beat the Packers. And we just came up super short. It's just disappointing. That's all I can say.
Mr. Duckett?
I mean, one thing, I don't think the Packers are a very good 2 seed, but they did beat the Vikings twice, so I don't think it would have been an automatic win if we won. With that being said, that Niners game, I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty much just going to reiterate it. It was the offensive line. I mean, yeah, we got destroyed, and that was pretty much the whole season. Every game we lost, it's because the offensive line got destroyed. And because we didn't get a run game going. If you look at the Vikings the last 4 years, for the most part, I'd actually say the Vikings offense over the last 4 years has been more pass-oriented than it has run-oriented. But the games in which we have success running the football, we win. Every game we lose, it's because we can't run the football. When we made the NFC Championship with Case Keenum, of all people, as a quarterback, the reason we made it is because we could run the football. We didn't even have Dalvin Cook after 4 games. And we went 10-1 in the regular season without him, because Jerick McKinnon and Latavius Murray could actually run the ball effectively. Now, it's not because they were so good. They did it good, but the offensive line actually gave them holes to run through. When the offensive line cannot get us a run game going, their pass block is even worse, and then Cousins has nothing to do. And Cousins needs play action. He's darn near the best play action quarterback in football. And when you can't run the ball, it's hard to do play action. The Vikings couldn't run the ball, which means we were totally going to pass every time. The Niners knew that. And then at that point, Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, all those guys just destroyed Kirk Cousins, and he had nothing to do. The defense was fine. We still got burnt on a few too many plays like we did all of last year. But the defense, for the most part, was fine. We just couldn't have – we got to the point where we had to be so one-dimensional offensively. And if everybody knows the Vikings are passing, they can't pass because the O-line's not good enough for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we can get away from that, I guess, nightmares probably for you guys. Move on to the off season. Besides one big thing, a fairly quiet off season for the Vikings. And Mr. Johnson over here, he's kind of foreshadowing what that one big thing was that we're going to be talking about here, unfortunately.
That was one heck of a trade. That's that one.
For them. So we'll just get right into it here. About end of March, Stefon Diggs got traded to the Buffalo Bills for and now correct me if I'm wrong. You know, you guys are Vikings fans, let me know if I'm wrong. But 2020 first, 5th, 6th, 7th, and then a 2021 4th. Is that correct?
That sounds right.
Okay.
I think we gave him a pick too, didn't we?
I think we swapped
like
fourth or swapped fifth.
A 7th.
Something.
Oh yeah, I actually missed. So the 7th and Diggs is what the Vikings traded.
Yeah.
And they got back a 1st, 5th, 6th, and 2021 4th.
Sounds good.
But anyways, so we got to start with the guy wearing the Stefon Diggs jersey. Ben, I know you like the guy. What is your thoughts on this trade? Just overall, how everything led up to that, went down. What was your thoughts?
Well, I mean, James called me when it happened. I think he was the guy who let me know. I think I was on vacation. I think I was in Florida or something. Man, that sucked. But we all knew it was coming. And we got a good deal for it. I think Spielman said he told Diggs he wasn't planning on trading him, and I believe that. But what we got for him made it worth it. And when we already have Thielen and this amazing wide receiver draft class was coming up, it was just too good of a deal not to turn down. And I love the guy, but he had too much attitude. And if I had to choose between him and Thielen, I have to go with Thielen because Thielen's the heart of the Vikings. Where Diggs, he's just another Antonio Brown. He's good talent. He's a baller. But, man, sometimes you got to just laugh at him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. James, what do you think?
Pretty much the same thing. We got to a point where you could tell he didn't want to play for the Vikings. He didn't want to be in Minnesota. I think a lot of it came down to that he is a head case. He wants to be the undisputed number one wide receiver. He doesn't want competition. He wants to be the guy, which he will now get in Buffalo. But I think he'll have a lot of fun having I'm pretty sure Josh Allen's the least accurate deep thrower in the league, and that's when Stefon Diggs, flourishes. He gets the big deep passes from a very accurate quarterback. We'll see how he likes Josh Allen hucking him the ball, but
he'll get a lot of balls.
He will.
Not to mention that he's going to have Stephon Gilmore guarding him 2 games, and he's going to have the Dolphins D-backs guarding him 2 games.
Hey.
What?
Oh, were you? I thought you were going to trash my Dolphins. That's usually how that goes.
No, the Dolphins secondary has.
That was a compliment.
I was checking.
Dolphins have a solid secondary.
I'm just so used to Nick trashing my teams. I just thought where that was going, so I had to stop him before he started.
I think I think he's right. Diggs wanted to be the man, but I just don't get it. He pretty much was the man last year. Like Thielen was up until last year always healthy, but last year he was injured and he just couldn't get over that hammy injury. And Diggs was for the most part the guy the whole year, and everybody loved him, and most people loved him. But he was just a crybaby, and now he's in Buffalo, where, like I said, 4 games he's going to have Stephon Gilmore and the Dolphins' 2 duos, the duo of a cornerback
Byron
they have over there. And he's got Josh Allen throwing to him, who I don't think Josh Allen's terrible as a quarterback in general, but throwing to Diggs, I mean, no, like Allen can run the ball pretty good, but Cousins is clearly a better passer. And as far as the trade itself, I was ecstatic. I honestly didn't think it was going to happen. Like you said, Ben, Spielman said he wasn't planning on trading him, and I believe that too. Because even though when you have guys with the talent of Diggs, even though when they say they want to be traded, it's hard to actually depart with a guy like that. But when you can get what you got for him, you have to do it. As Ben already mentioned, this was a great wide receiver draft. Honestly, maybe one of the best we've ever had. I mean, we got to see what happens. But coming into it, it looked like one of the best wide receiver drafts we've darn near ever had. And who's better, Diggs or DeAndre Hopkins? I think we all know it's DeAndre Hopkins. But we all know what the Texans got for DeAndre Hopkins, right? The Vikings got triple that for Stefon Diggs, of all people. And DeAndre Hopkins doesn't even have an attitude problem. So you couldn't not take that deal. Now, like Ben said, Thielen's the heart and soul of the Vikings. With that being said, I think Diggs is the better player, and he's younger.
Yep.
And as of recently, which sounds crazy, but as of recently, he's been more healthy. Throughout his career, no, but as of recently. But, you weren't going to trade Thielen, and you weren't going to get that for Thielen. So you trade Diggs, you bring in Justin Jefferson, who's supposed to be really good, and so far has looked good. And it seems like he's working well with him right now. And you get 3 other picks with that. You couldn't not take the deal. And I'm happy they did.
Yeah, that was one.
Not
obviously.
To mention, you get that salary off the books, and the Vikings had salary cap problems.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that much insight on the whole. Are we going to trade Diggs? Are we not? And now, obviously, I didn't know how big of a crybaby Stefon Diggs was. And
do you guys think it's a good trade for Buffalo?
No.
I think they gave up too much. They needed somebody, but not that badly.
Like, they could have just drafted a first-round wide receiver.
Exactly.
Granted, I would have waited till the second round in this draft, but, I mean, they could have just drafted a wide receiver.
Because we used their pick for Justin Jefferson, didn't we?
Yeah.
So they could have had Justin Jefferson for, $6-7 million for the next 4 years. Instead, they have to pay Diggs over $10 million a year for a while, and
they could have had 3 more draft picks, which may not seem like big picks, but 3 draft picks, even if they're all 4th rounders, are still important in the NFL. So
yeah, Vikings won that all across the board.
Yeah,
I mean, when once you trade that much for a player, when that new contract comes up, you have to give them whatever they want because you've already invested so much in them. You can't let them walk after a year or two, so he can demand whatever money he wants. And they're going to have to give it to him.
Good point. That's a good point. So we can move on from that now and just kind of general offseason moves. Again, the draft, I think the Vikings did a great job in their draft. Obviously, the headliner being Justin Jefferson. They made some other pretty solid picks, too. They got Gladney, who's an extremely solid corner. I'm really excited to see how this guy plays.
I love that.
Josh Metellus, too. I think he's slept on a little bit, but that guy's a pretty solid safety. But what do you guys have to say in general about the offseason, how you guys think the Vikings did in the draft, free agency, trades, and such? If you had to grade it, and then why you graded it at that, James, we'll start with you.
I think our draft went extremely well. We hit a lot of our holes and a lot of places we had issues with. But I think the problem with us was all the veterans we lost to free agency. We lost, I want to say, 6 or 7 starters. A couple of them not too sad to see go. David Rhodes, well past his prime, wasn't performing or paying him way too much.
Trash.
But Linval Joseph, I'm gonna miss that guy. He was a great nose tackle. We did, replace him with Michael Pierce, but of course he decided to opt out for health reasons,
stinks.
which is unfortunate. I feel like, and I know one guy that I think some people kind of forget about, Tajay Sharp, the wide receiver we signed. He's not nothing too special, maybe a solid number 2 or 3, but when he was getting 300 or 400 yards a season with the Titans, would have not had a great passing offense, goes from that to Kirk Cousins and having Adam Thielen, having Justin Jefferson, he could be a decent addition. But overall, I think, especially with losing OTAs in the preseason, we're going to have a hard time at the beginning of the year. We're going to be expecting a lot out of the young guys, a lot out of the rookies. We're going to have to be impact players immediately. And without the preseason, they're going to struggle at first.
Ben?
Well, yeah, I think Sharp will kind of be like a Jarius Wright type, where we get some good games out of him. He'll be a good third or something. I don't know. I like the draft. I think Spielman's he has year after year some of the best draft classes. He's incredible. I really thought that we addressed every hole, which is what every team should do. Unlike the Packers drafting love idiots.
Their first 3 picks are
for
meant for the future.
Not to mention they didn't take a wide receiver till the 6th round or something like that.
What
they didn't
an
take one at all.
What a dumb
They didn't take one at all.
Devin Funches in free agency, who hasn't played in a couple of years for a lot of injury problems, and that's all they did.
But man, what a dump on Aaron Rodgers. Let me say that. The poor guy that led this team, and they won't even give him a wide receiver. But coming back to the Vikings, great draft. Obviously not every hole will perform as expected, but I think Justin Jefferson will definitely be better than Treadwell. I think he'll be a solid number 2. Little concerned about him because he is Thielen type, so we don't have that deep bomb threat like Diggs potentially could have been. But like I said, we kind of just have to wait and see how it unfolds, but I'm super happy with it. I give it an A.
Yeah. Nick?
I actually think the Vikings had a very good offseason. Your average Viking fan who doesn't know what they're talking about, they were all pissed off they were losing so-and-so, and that's just because they're idiots and don't understand what a salary cap is. Yes, it's unfortunate to see some of these guys who have been the cornerstone of our defense gone. But Xavier Rhodes, like mentioned before, he was not good. Dude, a freaking chipmunk could have stopped a wide receiver better than Xavier Rhodes could have last year. He literally was probably the worst cornerback in the league. I'm not making that up.
Hey, made a Pro Bowl.
He was probably the best cornerback in the league 3 years ago. I don't know what happened.
Oh, yeah.
He was terrible. He was absolutely gosh-awful terrible. Like a horrible, very good, no bad day, whatever that book is. Just replace that with cornerback. That was Xavier Rhodes last year, all right? Linval Joseph, yeah. It's gonna suck to not have him, but he wasn't that good He wasn't that good last year either. He really lost a step too. Some of these guys raging. That's what happens. Mackenzie Alexander is gone, right?
Yeah. Him and J. Ron Kearse are gone.
That Mackenzie Alexander was the worst football player in the NFL. Well, I gotta admit, I was way wrong. He actually really improved in 2 years. It's gonna suck to see him go, especially with the cornerback depth not too strong. And then I was a big J. Ron Kearse fan, and he's gone as well. but it sounds like there really wasn't anything we could do there. He wasn't coming back. And now he's with the Lions, so he's still in the division. But with that being said, we had to get rid of those guys. It's just the way it was. We didn't have money. We had to get rid of them. And honestly, I don't think we really lost anybody that was that important to our defense. It looked like we were going to lose Anthony Harris, but we still have him for the time being. Are we going to have him in 2022? Probably not. But we still
I would
have
make
him right
an
now.
argue. I'd make an argue that Trey Waynes had a couple more years in him for us.
Yes, thank you. Actually, you are correct. That's the guy I missed, and I'm actually a big Trey Waynes fan. I thought Trey Waynes was much better than people give him credit for, because like 3 times a game they would try to beat him deep, and he never got beat deep. Sure, they might beat him for a first down every once in a while, but they kept trying to beat Trey Waynes deep, and they never did. And I'm actually a big Waynes fan, so I'm glad you mentioned that, Ben, because I totally forgot that. The Bengals probably gave him a little too much money. That's where he went, right? Cincinnati?
Oh, yeah,
they gave him way too much money.
They took him and
but I do think he's better than most people give him credit. But yeah, probably too much money. Mackenzie Alexander went there too, right? They took both of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
well, especially a couple of years ago with Trey Waynes, when Xavier Rhodes was in his prime, I think he was one of the top targeted cornerbacks in the league because of how good Xavier Rhodes was playing.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you see him and he wouldn't look that good because he's getting so many targets. And
yeah.
But
good point. But back to that. So yeah, we pretty much all those guys we lost. Sure, some of them are playmakers. A lot of them were starters, but they were declining for the most part, and we just couldn't afford them anymore. They had to go, and we replaced them with Pierce, who, like he mentioned, unfortunately won't be playing this year. We didn't really do anything in the free agency market for the cornerbacks, but that's what we used the draft for. Now, unfortunately, especially with Zimmer, he doesn't really seem to rely on rookies much, and it's hard to rely on rookies, but we're going to have to. Now, with that being said, I think they're going to be decent. It's hard to say. Sometimes you think this rookie is going to be a stud and he doesn't pan out. Sometimes they come out of nowhere. If the rookies do pan out, though, specifically the cornerbacks and Gladney and Dantzler, the Vikings are going to have a pretty good season, I think. If they don't, it could be rough because the secondaries, we got the safeties, but we don't have any cornerbacks. But with Spielman, what Spielman had to work with, I think he did a great job in the offseason. I really do. And I love Rick Spielman. Some people want him fired. I'm about the biggest Rick Spielman fan you'll find. You won't hear me say a bad word about Rick Spielman. I love him.
Yeah, he's amazing.
So now we got some prediction time. Predictions are always fun for teams.
Oh, sorry, one thing.
Nick, come on. No, I'm kidding.
It was mentioned before, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Gumph. He said about we're relying on the rookies, right?
Yeah.
I screwed it up. I'm sorry. Whatever. We're relying on the rookies a lot, right? Well, the beginning of the season, we play the Packers right away. I kind of wish we had an easier schedule towards the beginning. I mean, the Packers aren't 14-2 team, I don't think, or 13-3, whatever they went last year. They're not going to be that great, but it's still the Packers. We play the Seahawks week 5. We play the Texans like week 3. I wish the beginning of the season was a little less competitive so the rookies can get into it, but I still think we'll be all right.
Okay, I got one thing to say.
Yeah, please.
For our Seahawks, how does that happen? At the Seahawks, was this 4 years in a row?
This 3 or 4 years in a row, we play in Seattle on a primetime game.
That's brutal. I don't know what the algorithm is. I don't know how they determine that, but figure that out because that should not happen.
Well, we also have Atlanta at home for like the 3rd or 4th year in a row, and we tend to stomp them pretty good. So.
No.
Yeah, I know it's all mathematically algorithmed, whatever, but yeah, it's kind of lame how we always end up in Seattle.
Have them come here for once at least.
Especially considering Seattle's, besides last year, one of the best home teams in football the last, 7 years.
And Wilson always shows up against us.
Yeah, the Vikings are always close, but we never beat them because Russell Wilson just dominates us when he needs to.
Yeah.
So I'll make some predictions now. Nick, I'll actually start with you on this one. What do you see the Vikings' record being, and then potential playoff success? What do you think?
I don't think the Vikings' ceiling is incredibly high this year, but I also think their floor is very high. Like, I think there's way too much talent on this team to go under 500. There's no way they go under 500. I don't even see them going 8-8. I think 9-7 at the worst. but I find it very hard to believe they'd go better than 11-5. They're too young yet. There's a little too many holes. The O-line I don't think is going to improve enough. But I think 10-6 is a good number, just like last year, because I don't think the division is going to be that good. The Packers were not a very good 13-3 team last year, and they're going to be worse. I don't believe in the Bears at all, even if Nick Foles is quarterback. And the Lions are the Lions. They're just not good. The only problem is, like I mentioned earlier, we struggle in the last 2 years in the division so much. If we can find a way to beat the Bears and the Packers, then we'll win the division. If not, we're gonna hover around that 9-7 line and get in just because there's 7 playoff teams this year. But as of now, I'm going with 10-6.
Ben?
One thing we've kind of forgot to focus on is how Kubiak's going to be offensive coordinator now. And that will offensively could turn things around and create a higher scoring offense. We'll see how that goes. And it all depends on if Cook is healthy. But I'm more of an optimistic fan. So I would lean towards 12-4 at the highest, but a very good chance at 12-4. I think we've got the talent. It just all depends on if the rookies perform up to expectations. If the rookies are a B+, we're 12-4. But if they need a year to get ready, a transition year, I'd say we're a 10-6 team. I agree with that. It's a safe 10-6.
Yeah, and either one you can't be mad at too. 12-4, 10-6. I mean, that's now probably for sure good enough for the playoffs with these expanded playoffs now.
Oh yeah,
10-6 will win the division. If you beat the Packers, one of those 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James, what do you think?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I think 11-5 would be pretty solid. I would put the floor at about 9-7. If our secondary, the young guys, they can step up and they can play where we've drafted them from the first round, all that kind of stuff, then I think we have a pretty solid 11-5 chance. Yeah, I don't see the Packers really being as big of a threat this year. They got really lucky. They caught a bunch of breaks last year, and they seem to have gotten worse with their draft. So I'm not really having a whole lot of issues with them. But yeah, I think about 10-6, 11-5 is very reasonable with the roster we have.
Definitely. Well, it seems like you're all pretty much in agreement for the most part as far as record goes, a game or two separate. I kind of think they'd probably be somewhere in that range, anywhere from 10 to 12 wins as well for me, too. But that's the end of the show. So now I guess we get to do a little fun part, a little, I guess, mini rapid fire, only a couple questions for you. So we'll start with Ben. Favorite all-time Minnesota Viking?
Oh, man. Well, gosh. Antoine Winfield. Ever since I was little, that was my guy. He's tiny like me, and that guy could ball. And, of course, he's underappreciated. Probably won't be in that Hall of Fame or anything. But, man, that guy. And now, I wanted Antoine Winfield Jr. in that draft so bad. He was my all-time favorite. Baby. Yeah. And I'm okay with that if he's going to go somewhere. But Antoine Winfield, and then probably close seconds would be Randy Moss and the classics, For sure. But I'll go with Antoine.
James?
Yeah, I want to say Randy Moss. I don't have a whole lot of memories watching him play for us. It's kind of, we're a lot younger. I think I got to say Adrian Peterson, even though he's the go-to classic guy. But it was just so fun watching him as we grew up. Watching him grow up and play as we grew up, there's just no one like him.
Nick, who's your all-time favorite Viking?
I'm pretty much the same. I actually remember Peterson, and I loved AP. But with that being said, I honestly can't even really remember Randy Moss playing at all. But I still consider him my favorite Viking because the dude is amazing. I honestly think he's the best wide receiver ever. I don't care what those Jerry Rice fans have to say to me. If he wanted to play, Randy Moss is better than anybody ever was. And just seeing the highlights alone, I consider him my favorite Viking. I love me some Randy Moss.
So now we'll start with James on this one. All-time favorite NFL player, not not a Viking.
Oh.
So non-Viking.
Boy.
Dorton knows mine.
Oh, non-Viking. That's tough.
It's a tough one.
I really don't know. I can't. One guy, I never really get to watch him play all that much, but I love Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah,
You know,
can't go wrong
watching
with
him.
that.
I mean, the guy's got more tackles and drops in his long career. Back in the day, he used to be a ball boy for the Vikings in high school, and watching him play, the fact that he's in his 30s and still playing as well as he is, especially now with Hopkins on the other side of the field, he's a fun guy to watch.
Ben?
Well, non-Viking, kind of cheating, but Teddy Bridgewater's my man.
Fair.
Obviously, I could have picked someone before my time, but in my watching experience, I love that guy. I've got a poster of him in my room. Just, he's what you want to watch. He's the guy you're going to root for wherever he is. I think he's going to be amazing with Carolina.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much. I'm glad you agree with that.
Hey, Ben, how many games are Carolina going to win?
I'd say they're close to an 8-8, 9-8.
Wow. Thank you, Ben Johnson. That is why I brought you on.
If Carolina wins 8 games, I told Dorton I'll shave my head bald because it ain't.
I will get to shave his head bald. So
hey, we're tuning in and we're doing that. That'll be a special episode.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because it ain't happening.
It's happening.
Teddy Bridgewater. I like that, though. Nick, I mean, I think we all, almost anyone who listens probably is going to know who your guy is.
Thomas Patrick, the GOAT, TB12 Brady, the best man to ever put on a football uniform, the best man to ever touch the field. The guy who's clearly better than Aaron Rodgers, who's better than everyone, even Joe Montana. He's got 6 rings. It can't even fit on one hand. I don't care about Bill. He's the greatest coach ever. But Tom Brady's the man. He's the reason they won the 6th. He's the greatest. He's going to win it with Tampa Bay. Nobody's ever been better. Nobody is better. Thomas Patrick Brady. And I really love Tim Tebow.
Okay, next question.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Tom Brady's a whole nother episode.
Tom Brady is the greatest athlete possibly ever.
Well,
no,
I don't mean athletic ability. I mean like
no.
best.
Yeah, that's going to be a no for me, dog.
NBA.
The most winningest.
MLB, NFL, NHL. I'm taking Tom Brady over everybody.
Skip.
Pure athlete? No way. There's no way.
No, I'm not talking athletic ability.
Yeah. I get it.
If you're saying best NFL player, best NBA, best MLB, best NHL, who are you taking in their respective sports? I'm taking Tom Brady over probably everybody besides maybe Wayne Gretzky.
No, I'll take Tom Brady. I'm with you on that. Most winningest athlete of all time. Not greatest athlete. Most winning.
I mean, athletic ability, no, but yeah.
Yeah.
Hell no.
All right.
Oh, man. That's
the
fun.
dude does nothing but win.
Except when he plays Miami.
This year will be a big test.
It'll be a big test. We got a cat joining the show now.
Hey, say hi to Ben's cat.
Maddie.
Nice. It's always nice when animals make an appearance.
That's right.
But anyways, so we're at the end of the show now. First off, I hope you guys had a good time. I loved having you guys on. Definitely want to have you back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll see if we can open something up. Yeah, maybe.
So I'll talk to your front desk person, see if you can pencil me in.
I'll be back for the head shaving edition.
Yeah, that's right. I'll have to have you guys on for that.
If that happens, which it won't, you can come back.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
It'll happen.
Way.
Thank you, Ben.
I love me some Teddy 2 gloves too, but he ain't winning 8 games.
Oh man. But anyways, so this is the part of the show now where we throw out Twitter handles, social media handles. If you guys want people to follow you, talk Vikings football, NFL football, whatever, sports, whatever. I don't care what you want to talk about. You guys want to give out your handles for that if you want? Ben, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty much Mr. Benny 4 on everything. So hit me up, send me questions. I'm always retweeting sports stuff on Twitter, so I'd say that's where you should find me.
And one James Strom, where can the fans find you at?
Oh, I think it's actually James Strom. I honestly don't even remember, but I think that's where to find me. I think that's the name that Benjamin put me under and he made the fake account for me, but can't remember.
Hey, whatever works. That's awesome. If you want to follow either one of us, Nick or I, you can follow myself at Lucas_Dorton. If you want to follow Nick, his Twitter handle is at Doetkott, so his last name there. And if you want to follow the podcast Twitter account, at DND_podcast. So definitely follow all of those Twitter handles. We'll be sure to give you sports content. James, not so sure because he's not even sure what the name is, so maybe not as much from him, but that's okay. Ben can pick up the slack for him. But anyways, folks, thank you for listening. Be sure to share and subscribe this. We had a great time doing this. This is the first edition of the NFL offseason team review, Minnesota Vikings. If you would like to be on one in the future, if you have a team you want to talk about, definitely let us know, and we'll hopefully can have you on. But as for Nick, Ben, James, and myself, until next time, we are out.
Goal.